Well, friends, thanks for joining us for Sermon Sessions, where we get to unpack the sermon from this past Sunday. If you missed it, you can always go to our YouTube channel, which likely you're on right now, and watch what was pre-recorded. But also, a little trick, we audio record our messages. Typically, it's the 11 a.m. service. You can find that wherever podcasts are found, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. But this week, we're talking about rebuilding resiliency. And there's so many great ways we could go into this to begin. But I mentioned in the sermon that many sociologists and historians are saying pretty critically that we are living in the least resilient chapter of human history ever. What do you think of that? Do you think that sociologists are onto something, or do you think that we're more resilient than we've ever been? What do you think?
Go. You have something to say.
I do.
Yeah.
Go. Well, I mean, okay. Well, Frank, I'm working on it. I'm writing an article right now, but I've been working through the work of Simone Weil, who is like a French philosopher during World War II, and she has a book called "The Need for Roots." And it's this beautiful treatise. You don't have to agree with everything, but just going into what just happened, why did it happen, basically with World War II and World War I before it, because she kind of lived through both. And what she was talking about is that like we really aren't grounded as a society anymore in the ground. Like we don't have a community that we have locked into, and so we don't feel this interconnection. There's a lot more to the book. I'm obviously simplifying it, but I do think we're not the most resilient anymore, because I do think that resiliency is predicated upon social fabric and communities and connection. And I don't know if we really are in that stage in human development in this season. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts?
Say the name of that author again, Simone Weil.
She's a French mystic philosopher turned Christian at the end of her life before she died very young. But she really was giving this philosophical treatise on why is Europe where it is, and how do we get back to pre-war Europe? And really the conversation was around connection and resiliency specifically as a predicator of connection and belonging in a society.
That makes sense to me. And I see the connection in terms of grief. So how we journey or don't journey with people in grief. We've talked about this before. You know, in the days or weeks in which you've lost somebody, you see a sense of love, support, like consistency. But after a few weeks, right, the resiliency of journeying with people and their grief wears out. And this goes to the fires, the whole idea. We don't see it, we don't feel it. So it's like, I don't want to, because that hurts and that costs me something. And so I don't have the resilience for the discomfort of walking with people in their time of need. When people have gone home, gone away, forgotten about it, aren't you done yet with your grief? Time to move on. Can we have a party? Can we have joy again? So I think, so it totally makes sense to me. So I think there's I see that connection there with resilience and walking with people or not walking people in grief in particular.
Goodness. Discomfort. We would avoid it at all costs. I think we would soon rather die than feel discomfort. And it seems to be the case with so many people that I interact with. And even when I look at myself, the move away from, I don't want to feel this discomfort. So, and I think that is what depletes us from resiliency. So we see so much of that in society where people are getting away from the things that make us uncomfortable. And it's hurting us deeply.
But to your point, I think off of what your other point in the sermon, you're referencing a book. Tell me the name again.
Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter.
And the fact that we actually are wired for these types of challenges, right? And so if we don't have them, we create our own, right? So I think off your point, I think we are built for resilient. Like there's something about the human, whenever you watch a movie about human spirit overcoming something completely catastrophic or challenging, something part of us awakens. I mean, that's why there's like a multi-billion-dollar industry in storytelling around this. But I think like we don't have that purpose. I don't know if we have the thing that gets us up in the morning that is like it's worth the cost of what I'm about to do. So I think I think our society is lacking in some of those foundational pushes.
So with that, sociologists are saying that we're, for many reasons, the least resilient that we've ever been. We don't know how to navigate discomfort. Michael Easter in The Comfort Crisis, yes, he says that we were hardwired for overcoming adversity, and that used to mean surviving the winter. That used to mean gathering or hunting for your food, surviving attack from a warring tribe. And now we don't have to navigate all of that. And how fascinating that we're in this place that we'll go on a drive for like 45 minutes and we'll complain about how long it was, but then forget our ancestors used to have to walk that same distance that would have taken hours and hours, maybe the whole day to drive, 45 miles or whatever it is. And we were like, oh, it was just such a long drive when we were sitting the whole time in AC listening to our favorite podcast or whatever it is. So but with that, I'm also noticing that there's seemingly this endless river of resources and tips and tricks and hacks to help us become more resilient as you kind of survey the landscape of our society right now. And I especially see this on social media, but just within pop culture, before we get into the text, what do you see the world or our culture saying, this is how you can become more resilient?
Well, there's always like a course for that, It's like there's like a million
always a course
master
for that,
classes. I mean,
learn how to do it.
Yeah, there's like a 10-week course series, free workbook included. I mean, I don't know. It's an industry. I think it's become that.
So I have a hesitancy in sharing this because I kind of believe it does work a little bit. And I even think there's some scriptural components here too. But I do see some people, even secularly, talking about how it's important to get away and rest so that you can keep running the race, right? So if it's a marathon or if it's 100 miles, you've got the aid stations. Like you do need to get poured into. You need to get away with God so that you can keep doing the work that God has you to do. So I do see kind of in some ways those retreats being offered, those contemplative prayer, like just things to fill you up, to build that resiliency, to keep going, to not stop. Totally.
So what I love what you've done is you've seen how there's echoes of truth that reverberate throughout society, but it's not just enough to get away. Right. And I would say it's not just enough to have a digital detox, because then what do you fill in the void? And what I hear you saying is you're talking about this is where you get to fill it with things that really restore your soul, which we'll get to in a moment. What are some other things that you see in our culture saying this is how you and I can rebuild resilience?
Yeah, something came to mind, and then my mind just went blank for a minute. But I'm trying to access that. Where did it go?
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah, I often see as you think.
Oh, I know what it is.
You got it?
Yeah.
Quick.
I think it's I keep going back to rugged individualism. That it's something that our society perpetuates, that you have to do it on your own. And you have resiliency. You hear all the data. I have this resiliency. And yet there's a deep underlying knowing that I don't and I can't do this on my own.
Right.
And yet we try to perpetuate this. I'm an individual and I'm rugged and I can do this. And so we push forward and we strain. But in the meantime, we're missing out on the things that actually ground us and root us, and that's people. And so I don't hear a ton of that. I hear you do this, you can do this. Great. But can I do this with people?
Right.
Even to your story, Drew, about running the trail with Anthony. If you weren't there, he would have quit that race. He would have.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way he would have gone through it unless you were behind him, talking with him. He's cursing at you. You're taking the hits, but you're also reminding him of who he is.
And what's so wild is that he had 3 different pacers in addition to his crew. And so if you didn't hear the sermon, I paced with a group. Anthony's going to run 100 miles up in the Wasatch Range. And he chose the right people for the right stages. So his son-in-law, who's much stronger than all of us, took him up the biggest climb. I was the pastor that got him through the dark night of the soul, right? And then the motivator, Mark Payan, was the one who brought him home the last 10 miles. And he was just pumping him up the whole time. And he was just flying by the end.
So fun.
But yeah,
great.
community, right? Is such a big thing.
Well, I mean, you think even just the research, because you can look at, so say 2 different children go through the same horrific experience. One is fully resilient, able to rebuild their life and go into society and, and prosper. The other one isn't, and ends up in maladaptive coping strategies. And really, the research, they say that between those 2 people, what happened? One of them had somebody that believed in them outside of their family system, and that did not quit on them in their greatest failure. and didn't rescue them from their failure, but did not quit on them and stayed with them and was willing to walk with them. And the other one did not have a witness, did not have somebody who was like, I'm in the game with you. And that actually scientifically was the common denominator between those two people, one being resilient and one staying and being trapped actually in addiction. So it's just, that's fascinating to me that they even like the keynote of the study actually said that it had to be somebody outside of their family system. So it was somebody who had to love them just because they love them, not because of some societal loyalty, bond or whatever. But I do think this, as we keep circling around it is, I think our resiliency is directly attached to our attachment around with the people who love us and also our God. Are we securely attached to him?
It reminds me of that quote. You've said this before. I forget who said it, but it's, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. The idea of community giving us that long
Old
haul.
African proverb, actually. Isn't that beautiful? Well, 2 Corinthians 4:7, I believe, really unlocks for us the key to resiliency. And it's one of the things that I've wanted to memorize in this season, have it written on my heart, because it's so powerful. And the Apostle Paul says that we have this treasure in jars of clay, so that it could be made clearly known to everyone that this power comes from God and not from us. And this flies totally in the face of a world that says, you can do it. Just dig deeper. You're stronger than you think. Actually, no, what this says is we are the jars of clay. We are weak. We are frail. Paul says elsewhere in 2 Corinthians 14 or something that it's his strength that's made perfect in our weakness. And this treasure is actually the maker of heaven and earth that dwells in us by faith. So the one that spoke the cosmos into existence, who created mountain ranges, solar systems, the same spirit that rose Jesus from the grave, dwells in us by faith. That's the treasure. And Paul says that treasure is the thing that can grow from the inside out. And later on it says, therefore, even though we're wasting away on the outside, we're being renewed on the inside. So as followers of Jesus, what are some things that you do to renew the inner life, making space for God in your life, making space for the Spirit in your life, making space for the immovable, unshakable Lord to be the one, even when it feels like you're getting pressed in, that it doesn't crush you because you have this strength from the inside out. What are some things you
brought
do?
this up and in your sermon, Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And to me, it's so perfect. And it's fun. It's interesting because we want to wait to that moment where it's so bad. Things are so bad. And we're like, I can't. And it's just like, I'm finding myself getting to that place much sooner is really healthy. Like to have a good cry, not every once in a while, but regularly, to just be like, I really do need you in these places all the time. So that brokenness, like the broken and contrite heart before God, to say like, I am surrendered and humbled and absolutely at my end. And not once a year, but every day. Not that I'm weeping every day in the Garden of Gethsemane, but like, regularly having that posture of just complete abandon and going, I need you. And what do we know? Jesus was met and was strengthened and was carried by God to do what he needed to do. Yeah.
I think for me, this is a newer one that I'm developing last few years, I'd say, is like not allowing the tyranny of the urgent into my life and to dictate my decisions. I think that especially in other past seasons of different ministry experiences, like always feeling like behind, like everything was due yesterday, like and being on this kind of like hamster wheel where you're just moving at a mile a minute and everything is like life or death, like making sure that like I'm in fight all the time or flight, you know what I mean? Like just like your nervous system is going. I mean, it got to a point at one point where I was drinking like 3 coffees a day. And I just started like being very kind to myself because I was like, what's happening? And it was like in that conversation that I realized I was like, I need to make some changes like in my job, in my workflow, in the expectations, because this isn't actually sustainable. And I don't think adding another coffee is actually getting me to like the place that I want to get in life. You know what I mean? But I realized that and by no like fault, like no pointing fingers of the cultures that I was around, but it was just like, I'm not thriving in everything being urgent. Like I actually feel like we're supposed to be slow. And I feel like when I look at the Bible, I just see God slowing us man down all the time. Like he's constantly slowing you down. So it's like you either choose to go with that yoke or he like comes for you, like kind of like John Mark Comer, like for Sabbath, like it's coming for you. Either way, you either take it or or it's going to come find you.
I love how you look at me. It's coming for you. I'm like, it is. Yeah.
It is. But I mean, I don't know. I used to feel this like, and now that I'm 40, woohoo. Like I actually feel, I just don't feel, I don't need to be on this, like the path of, I don't know. I have no expectation anymore, but that was a lot of work of me doing some stuff of why I felt I needed to be in that urgency space. So yeah, that's my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
I was 27, so that's 30 years ago. And someone taught me a prayer. It's the Yahweh prayer. You mentioned it in a sermon a few weeks back. Yod He Vah He, 4 consonants that capture the name of God. No vowels. YHVH. Can't pronunciate it, can't say it. All you can do is breathe it. So age 27, breathe in Yah, breathe out Way. 57, 30 years forward, I feel like I'm just beginning to do it. After 30 years, striving, trying, running my face into the ground, rugged individual, trying to be resilient, trying to succeed as a minister, trying to plant this church, falling in my face. Finally, in my 50s, I'm just breathing. And as I breathe in Yah and out Way, everything lifts. Things get lighter because all I'm doing is breathing. I'm not succeeding. I'm not killing it. I'm not preaching. I'm breathing. And that tunes me into what's holding me all together. It's God's breath. Every lung, everything is God inside of me doing this work. So when I get pressed, it's like, it's just pushing more breath out and bringing more breath in. So I breathe. And when I get anxious, I breathe. And when I get overwhelmed, I breathe. And that's my prayer, is breath these days. I don't say words. I don't have any words left. It's just breath. And that's been the most life-giving. So when you were teaching that on Sunday, my mind kept going to just breathe. Breathe in, Yah. Breathe out, Way. Slowly dwell with God. And it has centered me more than any self-help, anything, any inspirational speech. It just centers me and grounds me. And that's how I get resilience. It's just by breathing, breathing in God's breath and tuning in.
I think that last part is key, though, for people listening to catch. In the same way that you said, to be able to take space to get away so that you can connect with God. Breathing, but not just breathing, because there's a lot of breathing books out there, breathing methods, but you're saying, but you're breathing in the very name of God. And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah. Nothing else. That's such a powerful next step, because I think so much of culture is like knocking on the door of the divine. And I think we can meet people right where they are. That so much of these, tricks and tips that the world is offering, it's like, yes, so that the one who made the cosmos can dwell in you by faith.
Yeah.
And wants to dwell in you. And you don't have to have this, gold-plated exterior of perfect good deeds. It's not fine china. It's jars of clay.
Yeah.
And again, coming back to the sermon, clay is the most common substance. I mean, it's from the earth. And that would have been so countercultural in the ancient world to put some exquisite treasure in something so common. But that metaphor of the exquisiteness of God in us, in our frailty, in our humanness, in our brokenness, in the cracks of our lives. But that's not how God intentionally made us, though, because we are God's poema, God's masterpiece. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. So there's these two truths, that we are precious in God's sight, and we are fragile, and we're human, and that God dwelling in us transforms us from the inside out. And that's what's such a gift. So as we go into this season, Thanksgiving, the Advent season, Christmas, what's one word that you want to carry in your inner life that can just expand in a way that might help towards resiliency in the most busy season of the year? a word, a phrase, a thought, what can you hand off to our listeners in this season?
Buoyant joy.
Buoyant joy.
The ball that goes down to the bottom of the pool that we try to step on, but we can't because it keeps coming back to the surface because it's full of joy. And the world will try to push it down to the bottom, but you can't. Because by its very nature, it has to come to the top. So eventually you'll get there. Just hold on.
That's
it's
great.
Coming back to the top.
I don't know how to follow that one. Do you have your word or your phrase?
I can jump and give you a second. I think I've just been hearing the phrase. It kind of started, I've heard it several different times the last few months, and that's when I know the Lord is speaking. You know, it's like he says it 3 times. I'm like, oh, hi. But just like peace is actually, it's about me and him first. Like it doesn't matter about the conflict happening outside. It doesn't matter about the financial situation. All those things are important, right? Or the conflict over here or this situation. But if me and God aren't at peace, none of that other stuff is going to get ordered out. And so I think just like putting the first things first, if we're going to throw in an Al-Anon slogan, just making sure everything like, especially when we find ourselves, because the holidays, right? There's a lot of emotions, there's grief, there's family dynamics, there's food, there's, all the different things that are coming up. And I think just taking a step back from if there is chaos or if there is crazy making or if there is any unfortunate, strife, just to go, okay, wait, are me and God good first? And just, I think that's what I'm practicing right now. Like, Lord, are you and I good? Like, have I spent time with you? Have I seen your face today? Smile at me, And I think just making sure I not try to fix outside stuff before I, like, really what you talked about. Like, it's about the inside first, inside job. So that's probably.
So at first I thought my word was surrender. But I'm like, is it? And this is perfect. God's like, it's listen. Listen. It's cool. Listening. So I think of the phrase Jesus talks about, my sheep will know my voice. Like you'll know my voice. So I just want to listen. So that posture. And it's so great sometimes when you feel like, and I know we all talk for a living, but to just be so comfortable and rested with not having to say anything. And it goes back to even just, I don't have words. There's this quote I love. It's like, if you don't have the words, come sit next to me, for I too am fluent in silence. Just the idea of like getting in nature and just listen.
So
listen to the voice.
So good.
The one who calls you the beloved. Henry Noah.
So good. Love that. So my word in this season is refuge, but in a different way that I normally would have thought of it. Scripture talks about God is our refuge. God's word is our refuge. God's name is a refuge. Christ is our refuge. But to flip it, to also realize in addition to that, because Christ dwells in us by faith, the same spirit that rose Jesus from the grave dwells in us, I want to create space in my inner life so it's a refuge for Jesus. Like, what intentional choices do I need to make so that Jesus says, that's a refuge for me? For Jesus. And in the, there's no space anywhere. Going into the Christmas story, there's no room at the inn. Sometimes that can be a description of my inner life. So I want to make space for Christ to have a refuge. All right, friends. Joy to be with each of you. Subscribe to our channel here. That's free, of course. People call up and they're like, if I subscribe, do I have to pay? No, you just hit the little subscribe button and that just alerts you to things that pop up in the future. So be blessed in this season, and may the Christ who spoke all things into existence, Colossians 1, who holds all things by the power of his word, dwell richly in you so that you would be uncrushable, unshakable from the inside out. Blessings to you on this day.